The next few months were pretty uneventful for me. I bought myself a camper trailer, moved into the cemetery, and didn't have any single close encounter with anything paranormal. I read through every book in the mausoleum, jotting down notes on my own book of shadows so that I felt like a proper witch. I journaled my dreams there as well, since they were the only glimpse into the astral plane. By late March, I had yet to successfully astral the project, and was starting to get nervous. If I couldn't manage to do it by May Day, then I'd have to wait at least until next Halloween before I had the chance to petition Perisbone into my release my friend. Another 6 months of this literal hell. As heavily as the thought weighed on my mind, I didn't have any head count down the day to be looking for another witch to help me learn the craft. I just went to go get the seeds so I could plant a garden in the weather that turned warmer. But while I was driving along Queen Street, a building just down Alblanton Avenue caught my eye. It was a beautiful Victorian house with the ground floor converted into a storefront, Eve's Eden of Historicia, spiritual wellness and metaphysical supply center, a new age shop that I had seen, but never really gave much thought into. Even ever since my experience on Halloween, I never considered that to be commodified mysticum that could offer any actual answers to me. And yet, I gazed upon the building. I couldn't deny that my spidey senses were tingling. The clairvoyance then told me something generally paranormal that was in the shop. Even if I was wrong, it couldn't hurt to look. I parked on the side of the avenue, walked up to the entrance, and was greeted by multiple posted flyers advertising the shop's wares and services. They sold crystals, candles, incense, books, chariot desks, Ouija boards, spell kits, altar doll idols, apostolic medicine, herbal teas, and assortment of related paraphernalia. They frequently hosted yoga and meditation classes, offered personalized metaphorical solutions, whatever that meant, and once a month held a woman-scared sexually seminars. Honestly, the place embodied with pretty much every agey stereotype that I could think of, and I almost could have laughed at it if it weren't for the hand drawn on the logo on the front door. It was blonde, biblical Eve, but instead of an apple, her forbidden fruit was a pomegranate. She raised the seed, smudged a smiling lips, exactly like the portrait of Perisbone in the mausoleum. Obviously, this feminist reimagining of an old story, turning an act of subjugation into one of empowerment, wasn't a good novel concept, but its specific similarities to Perisbone project portrait that were uncanny. Whoever had drawn it clearly knew something of the underworld, and I needed to speak with them. I pushed open the door, ringing that old-fashioned bell as I did so. I immediately saw what I was sensed from outside. Sitting at the front desk and reading a book was absolutely breathtaking. A young woman that was still tall, and with long tresses of, let's say, blonde hair, intense blue eyes with smoky eyeshadow, feline cheekbones with dedicated nose and chin, and her fair skin was decorated with colorful nature and pageant tattoos. She looked like Eve at the front door, just wearing slightly more clothing. She was dressed in a dark green hooded crotchless vest that looked like it was held close by a drawstring at the chest, leaving flat her stomach and pierced navel proudly on display, among with other pair of taiki shorts. That was even the most remarkable, and her appearance was her aurora. I could sense that with ease that she was a powerful clairvoyant like myself, far more than anyone else did I had encountered since I started studying the occult. Someone who might actually be able to provide me some guidance to this new arcane that I had to stumble upon to. And I, being socially anxious, wildflower as I am, just stood there dumbfounded at her too, even nervous to say hello. After a moment of silence, she looked up from her book, greeting me with a retail smile that instantly morphed into an expression of genuine and surprise and delight. "Hello, sister," she beamed, rising up from her desk and extending her right arm. At first, I reflexively recoiled at her attempt to impose her familiarity, but since I realized that she could read me easily as I could read her, if being witches didn't make us keen. Then what did? Hello, sister, I murmured, meekly shaking her hand and advertising my eyes as much as I could. Even thought she was only a few inches taller than me. I felt completely dwarfed by her. Ah, you're Eve, then I take it. Genevieve, yes. Genevieve Fawn, or Evie works fine though, she introduced herself. Wow, Genevieve Fawn, that's such a beautifully witchy name, I fawned. I'm Samantha Summoner, and I do prefer Samantha in full. You got it, she smiled warmly. It's a rare pleasure to meet such another gifted woman, especially on a lovely redheaded like yourself. How is it that we never crossed paths before? Are you new to Sombromori? Oh no, I lived here my entire life, I replied. But only recently I came to be aware of my clairvoyance. Last Halloween I had a pretty intense encounter with the supernatural, and since then I've been studying it intently, and I'm concerned that I've come as far as my own though, and I felt your aurora from outside, and was hoping that I might be able to hone my abilities. I'm especially interested in learning how to astral project. I would love to take you on an inch tonight, she said, with sparkling eyes. Do you have some time now, Ashley? We could both go to the parlor and talk over some wine and weed if you like. I've got plenty of both. Big yes on the wine. Marry it if you have it. I've always liked a little bit social lubricant to open up to new people. I nodded, relieved to have not to fight against my social anxiety just to talk to her. I'll only smoke if you have CDB dominant strain. Anything more than 15% THC tends to turn my anxiety into full-blown paranoia. I've got some Stelvia that may work for you, she said. Please take a seat and I'll be with you in a moment. I did as she asked, sitting in the particular while she flipped through the open sign door to close and fetched a sign of merit with wine glass, and a marble little mini bong with a pentagram on the side and a triple moon goddess single on the front. She poured the wine first, and I sipped mine as she read the bong. There's to take a little hint off of that and tell me it's too much for you, she said, pressing it to me. I nodded appreciatively, and as I took a small hit to test it, swirling the smoke in my mouth a little bit, before inhaling it to my lungs and blowing it back out. That's perfect, thank you, I said, taking a bigger hit before passing it back to her. No problem, she said, and she looked at herself. How about you start off by telling me this encounter you had on Halloween? I did, and I get pretty talkative when I talk to something to calm my nerves down. So I spent more than an hour telling her everything about it since October. She sat there listening to the rapt interest, rarely interrupting. I let out an exhausted sigh when I finally finished and went to drain the rest of my wine. Wow, she murmured. You really had to watch him die. Yeah, it was probably the worst day that's ever happened to me, I admitted. And when I say that, it sounds like it must be pretty damn to be stupid living there by now. I don't think you're stupid, Samantha. I think you're incredibly resilient to have one that traumatic experience ruin a place that clearly means a lot to you, she countered earnestly. I mean, love this house, but if it's something that's happened here, then I don't know if I'd be strong enough to stay. You're a remarkable woman, Samantha. I nodded half-heartedly, utterly unconvinced of that. In the picture of the front of the door, Eve, it almost looks exactly like a portrait of Paris Bone in my mausoleum. I finally managed to bring up. When I saw that, I thought that it couldn't be a coincidence. You have spoken with the spirits, haven't you? I have, including the ones that claim to have visited both the underworld and the Summerland. She nodded. I also had visions on occasion, and I have seen the maiden goddess ruling as queen of the underworld, and the spirits confirmed this for me. It makes sense truthfully. The maiden embodies all the aspects of woman's youth, including the needed independence from your mothers to forge our own identities apart from them. The myth of Perisbome is much more palpable to me in the light. She's the woman of extreme assert agency. The bastardizations of the myth that reduced her into something pretty for Hades and Demeter to fight over only meant to take that agency from her. Everything I've read about her in the Ancestors' Journal has far made it clear that she does not want for power. I agree, through considering that I'm planning on doing. That's a little more imitating than inspiring. And are you sure that's what you want to do? Journey to the underworld to petition Perisbone to pardon a man you barely knew? She asked. I nodded somberly, not really expecting her to understand. I knew him all well enough to consider him a friend. My interactions with him, brief as they were, ended up changing my entire life in a trajectory in the worldview, and he had a significant impact in my life, and the troubles me deeply that he suffered and died, and now is trapped in Hades for all eternity, because of a deal we made over a century before he was even born. I figured if a mortal convinced Perisbone to do this, a mortal can convince her to undo it, and no one else is going to argue for my friend's freedom. But this is something I have to do, not just for me, but just I can't justify abandoning one of the few people I have made a connection with. They needed me the most. Genevieve smiled, anxiously biting her knuckle. I really admire your conviction, even if I don't completely understand it. I'm more willing than to help you. Tell me your attempts to astral the project so far. I started by meditating for the last 20 minutes, and then once I'm fairly relaxed, I visualized glowing astral body rising up from my physical body over and over, until I actually could feel myself floating and the vibrations of the astral plane, I explained, and then always chickened out. That's perfectly understandable. Your technique sounds good, though. I think you're just having a guide with you to help you cross that threshold, she commented. Estrogens are also helpful, both calming the mind and enhancing your clairvoyance. I microdosed your mushrooms, and you have a special strain of cannabis called Delpine Dream to get to the right headspace. Binaural music and soothing incense are good too, of course. I'm willing to try that, I nodded eagerly. We should all do that here, in your meditation studio? We could, but I think it's best you do it in your cemetery, she said. It's familiar to you, where you're comfortable and close to the underworld portal. You also used to try weakening the veil. I also like to see the place for myself. It's amazing to think that you've been so close to Astral Nexus all these years and had no idea. Though I guess you're not supposed to be easily find. She halted when she noticed I was staring at her. What? You call it a cemetery? I smiled softly. Isn't that what you said it was? She asked in confused. I did, but no one else ever told me I would have been able to remember that for a far moment, I explained. I have had my parents out there, and they can't remember it's a cemetery. I brought my hand over to my mouth, trying to stuff all the tears. I'm sorry. The whole thing has been wearing on me more than I realized. It's such a relief to finally be able to really talk about it with someone, and I'm so sorry to burden to you with all this. I trailed off into sobs, and Genevieve placed her arm around me consolingly. Samantha, you're not burdening me with anything, she swore. I've been practicing astral projection for years, but never have been able to physically plane. For years, I've been searching my way to visit the underworld or Summerland to see the goddess in person. And when you walk through my front door, and you tell me you've been living in Industrial Nexus for the past 4 months, meeting you has been the best thing that's ever happened to me in a long time. Same, I murmured meekly. God, I'm sorry, I'm not great at this. And by this I mean whatever you mean or meant. I don't want to mislead you. Because I do that sometimes and make things awkward. But if I pretend not to notice that I was misreading, then you might get offended and things might still get awkward and... Samantha, she interrupted politely, as anyone would possibly would, gently sweeping the back of my hair. Would you like to spend the night here with me? I hesitated for a moment. I never slept with someone I just met before, and I didn't really think myself was the kind of person who did that. But she was the only other witch I have ever met. The only person could help me confide with her. I only kinded her spirit who could truly understand what I was going through. And she was so beautiful. I leaned in and kissed her, and not particularly necrotic here. But so the sexy details you're going to get at that? Sorry, I will share the unsexy detail with you though. I cried again at this point, and I couldn't have the physical relations for years. And I guess I was in denial for how starved of affection I was. That's when all of my previous relationships, with men or women, never really had encountered with, and just accepted I didn't pair well with anyone. But Evie and I were just clicked, and I was smitten. In the morning, she made me breakfast, plant protein eggs with soy bacon. Even though I had never been able to get into vegan food before, just the fact that she cooked for me made me feel wonderful. We packed up everything we needed and her shop girl. She was set off to free in the cemetery. It was beautiful early spring morning, just above freezing, crisp, clean, and air-filled with the singing of newly returned birds, lingering patches of snow, and creeks and ditches flowing freely in the winter runoff. I just don't get out of the city as much as I could, Genevieve remarked, as we drove down the Harwick Melly Road, admiring the majestic forest around us. I do most of my outdoor rituals in Infinite Park, but these woods, they have a primeval, nearly pristine to feel them, like the horned god still runs with them, the remnant of the once great forest ancestors destroy. It's a sublime. What are you slowing down? The cemetery's just up ahead, I said, pointing right. Do you see it? It's just past the tree line. She leaned forward and squinted, but shook her head. I just see trees, maybe a little sparse here before, but that's just all I noticed, she replied, sounding a bit disappointed. I turned to the loop path, and soon we all passed underneath the arch. Her face lit up in wonder. You feel it all right? Of course you do, I smiled. I've never been anywhere in the Vale than this before, she gasped. This is really astral nexus, and a consult between the astral and the physical planes, scared to the great goddess, and I couldn't see it. Does that mean I'm not only worthy to be here? Absolutely not, I said resolutely. I wasn't sure if clairvoyance was all that required, or there was just something more. But even if there is, it's not about worthiness. I'm sure of that. The occultist would be at this place sure as hell wasn't as worthy. Honestly, I think it was just my fascination with cemeteries, combined with my late clairvoyance, that let me seek this place. I'm not special, just weird. I brought the car right to a stop in front of my trailer. And this has been my house for the past 4 months, I said. I know it's been a tenth size of your beautiful home, but I do find an ample of your yard space more than it takes up for it. Oh my God, it's a tiny house. You've got a tiny house and I love it, she screamed, leaping out of my car and excitedly run laps around my trailer. It's a completely solar powered? Yep, I've got 275 watt panels all up on my roof and 12 kilowatts per hour on power storage, I explained. As I got out of the car and shut both our doors, I hooked up the electric pump as well for the water, which I have tested, and I keep a rain barrel for backup. What about your sewage? I use a compost toilet, so I didn't have any black water, and all the soap is biodegradable, and my gray water is just safe to dump. I'm also going to plant a vegetable garden soon, and I'm going to build some cold frames. Maybe even have a small greenhouse so I can have a garden next winter. I'm really starting to embrace homesteading lifestyle, becoming as self-significant as possible. You are amazing. Look at this thing. You close in this awning and the mesh net, and you have an outdoor room? And is this a hot tub? It's just a little one. There's no room for a tub in the trailer, and I like to take baths. You did not do this place for justice when you described it to me, she claimed. This isn't squatting. This is glamping. You're the most glamorous hedge witch of this history of hedge witches. She was the first person to ever call me a hedge witch, and I liked it. Go get set up. I'll feed my cat before we start. I'll be with you in a minute, I instructed. When I stepped into my trailer, I was greeted by an irritating meowing of my tabby Moxie. I know I didn't come back last night and you're hungry. I'm sorry. I apologize. As I set to work on filling a bowl of food, I have a good excuse though. I met someone wonderful, someone kind and magic, starred and beautiful and very, very good with her fingers. I placed the bowl right in front of him. and gently scratched his head as he gobbled it up. She's going to help me with my astral projection today, and I'm really excited about it. Maybe we could be doing almost anything together, and I'd be really excited about it. Can I tell you a secret, Moxley? I'm already hoping she's going to be your new mommy. And I know I said I didn't want to meet other people here, but I think she deserves an exception. You can meet her in a little bit, but right now we've got some important witch stuff to do. I'll be back later. I kissed him on the head and went out to join Genevieve in the cemetery, who was already sitting in the lotus position with a blanket she brought. The incense had been burned, and her music was playing on the Bluetooth speaker. But she was once again preparing for her bong. Is that the microdose that hit you? She asked. I think so. The colors are saturated. In all the senses, including the clairvoyance, I feel sharper. I replied. Good estrogens really do make all the difference are the timers. The Delphi dream will definitely make it easier to the astral project. But it's right at your limit, THC, she cautioned. Do you want to try it? Yes, I think it'll be okay. She feel pretty safe here, and with you, I said shyously. Sitting down across from her, Edgy smiled and passed me the bong. I took a few small hits off of it, and she was definitely unusual. I felt the unusual calmness and euphoria that I would be expected from a hybrid strain, but there was no risk of stray anxious, though snowballing in a panic attack. I was instead shifted into the altered state of conclusiveness, where my thinking was just more intensive than my usual anxious over-analyzing. My thoughts flowed like water, and I merely watched as a detached observer. This combined with the fact that my clairvoyance was now noticeably stronger, making it the most effortlessly to focus on the spiritual manners, lured by the music and Genevieve's guiding voice. I soon entered the deep state of meditation. At Genevieve's instruction, I visualized my astral body rising upwards. I felt myself levitating almost immediately, along with the higher frequency vibrations of the astral plane. This time, though, I felt no fear, and I didn't stop. I just allowed it to happen. Samantha, open your eyes, I heard Genevieve say. I obediently complied, and to my amazement, I saw her literally radiant, floating proudly in the air. She was now as nude as the image on the shop's logo, her hair flowing draped over her chest, with the soft light imitating her, simultaneously obscuring it while framing it something profoundly scared and shocked. I looked down at myself to see myself glowing from over my physical body to my relief. I wasn't, naked, but was dressed in a approximation of what my real body was wearing. Jeans, a red hoodie, and green thermal vest. I presumably because I was been imagining, but I still could feel my body. I wasn't free of it, and I was just projecting my conclusiveness outwards. Since my real eyes were closed, I could only feel my clairvoyance. This physical now seemed to be dark and ghostly, seen through a fog heard underwater. Only astral bodies like myself and Genevieve appear bright and distinct and fully real. Thank you, I whispered softly too, stunned to my success by it. Congratulations, Samantha. You are now officially an astral projector, she cheered. Do you want to just fly around for a bit? It's fine, it's what most people do on their first time. It's really cool. No, I shook my head vigorously. I have been trying to do this for months, and I can't waste this opportunity. I need to seek the audience with Perispone. I turned my attention towards the near archway, the astral portal to the underworld, and as I was effortlessly whisked towards it. On the astral plane, it bore a little resemblance to my physical form, and it was instead a colossal structure of carved onyx. Its pillars made of miserable skeleton figures, eyes and mouths agape, and even crushed beneath the weight of Hades and Perispone on their thrones. The portal itself was occluded with a thick white fog, and imitated through devastating sense of dread and despair, and I could hear the distant engaged wails of the dead on the other side. It was coldness that represented the dearth of energy and life. You might want to put something warmer I said halfly jokingly. I grabbed my hand, and invocating the warmth spread in from her astral form into mine. Those aren't our physical bodies, and it's not physical cold. We need astral energy to keep us warm, and I've got plenty of that, she assured me. Remember that we can't get trapped down there. We're still bound to our bodies, and all we have to do this end is open our eyes. It's the only way to be separated from your body without dying to achieve this complete detachment from the earthly desires. And I love weed and wine and woman too much to be in any danger of that. Funny, that's what's going to keep us going for hell. She paused, noticing that I was staring up in utter horror into the idols of gods who had turned my life upside down, whose domain I dared to trespass on. Samantha, I won't think of any less of you if you don't want to do this, she promised. I shook my head and tears flowing down my cheeks. I can't give up now, I said admittedly, more to myself than her. If we get separated, then we'll both wake up immediately. Agreed? Agreed, she nodded. Whenever you're ready, sister. I tightened my grip upon her hand. Its warmth consoling me, reminding me that I wasn't walking into Hades alone, and I thought I would. I had the supporting guidance of a wise and powerful witch, that I wasn't just some lone recluser, daring to meddle in the matters beyond her ken. With her by my side, I could do this. I inhaled deeply of an ancestral effort and, shoving all the fear and doubt in my mind, Genevieve and I stepped through the portal to the underworld.